The other issue we have to consider under this report is the request by a recipient to confirm that his or her name be removed. In this case, it's Bob Geldof. Sorry?
A question about this before we get into the debate.
Yes, go ahead.
From my understanding of it, that Bob Geldof requested this while Aung San Suu Kyi remained on the roll of honour. But if she wasn't on the roll of honour, that he wanted to remain on the list. So I don't think this is a request.
Okay,
he's gone.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me just, sorry, to avoid confusion here.
Yeah.
My understanding of it is that Bob Geldof returned the freedom of the city. He made it very, very clear. Now, I would be very strongly in favour of confirming that, because he made no reference to the City Council or to me or to anybody in any way, shape or form. He didn't ask us what we had done, whether we had considered the issue of the freedom of the city of Aung San Suu Kyi. He didn't even request us to remove Aung San Suu Kyi from the roll of honour. He simply flew into Dublin, said he wouldn't be on the same roll as Aung San Suu Kyi, and gave the scroll back. That was the procedure. For me to do anything other than confirm that would be an insult, because he insulted the city. And he was also quite hypocritical, because on the one hand he was saying that he didn't want to be on the same roll of honour as Aung San Suu Kyi, while of course he remained on the roll of honour with the Order of the British Empire and, you know, the long list of people involved in that, and the record of that institution. So to me, not to confirm this would be farcical. So I'll take speakers on it. Councillor
Myself, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Montague, McAuliffe,
Myself.
O'Toole, McHugh and Flynn. Councillor Montague.
Well, it's quite clear to me that Bob Geldof only wanted to be off the list while Aung San Suu Kyi was on the list. She's off the list now, so he doesn't want to be off the list. So basically we're voting to remove him in a fit of pique because we're annoyed at the publicity that he generated. Sorry, can I have silence here while I speak? I think that if we look at Bob Geldof and what he has done, he manages to get up the nose of a lot of people. He can be arrogant, he can be a big mouth, he can be a self-publicist. But it's for those reasons that he's been very successful at making significant and important change, the kind of change that most people here in this room would get behind. Not everybody remembers, not everybody was even born when Live Aid happened, but Band Aid and Live Aid were very important cultural moments in our history. And at the time, really what they did was just raise money, and it was a drop in the ocean for what was needed to change the world. But what they also did was generated a lot of momentum, and a lot of people started listening to people like Bob Geldof, who then campaigned for things like debt relief for impoverished countries and the Millennium Development Goals. And it was those two things that really had profound change in the world. Now, there were other people involved, and it wasn't all about Bob Geldof, but in my opinion, Bob Geldof had a profound impact for good on this planet. And the Millennium Development Goals are recognised by most experts as one of the most important changes that have happened in this world. So I think, even though he can be irritating, even though he annoys people, even though people feel that their toes were stepped on because we were going to do this anyway, that Paul Hand and Kieran Perry and yourself, Lord Mayor, and Eilish Ryan were already working on this issue. So we were annoyed that he's stealing our thunder, and yes, he did do that. But I think we should not be removing him from the roll of honour of the freedom of the city when he does not want to be removed once Aung San Suu Kyi is off the list. That's what his wishes are. And for us to do otherwise would just be, you know, a fit of pique, and to remove somebody who's done something, an Irishman who's done wonderful things around the world, I think it would be wrong of us to do that.
As a further point of information, it was quite clear he said he wanted his name removed. He said then the City Council, he might like to consider replacing his name if Aung San Suu Kyi was removed. So it wasn't a condition.
It's clear what
it wasn't a condition.
It wasn't clear what his wishes are.
Councillor.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. Just procedurally, I suppose there was a meeting in which Bob Geldof met with City Council officials and an exchange happened. It's not clear before this Council what happened in that meeting, and there's no report before us as to what he did or didn't ask. There was obviously media commentary separately, but I'm not clear as a member of the Council what happened. I did, by chance, happen to be in the building as he was coming in, and I did engage with him, and it was quite clear that he was doing it he was doing it as a publicity stunt. He said it himself, to bring attention to Aung San Suu Kyi. I think it would be remarkable on the same night as removing Aung San Suu Kyi that we would also remove somebody who was keenly in favour of that. I'm going to formally put forward a motion, Lord Mayor, that until there is a report before me which states that Bob Geldof no longer wants to be a free man, given the events of tonight, then I don't believe we should vote for it.
Lord Mayor, on a point of information.
Sorry, and the item should be postponed.
Lord Mayor, on a point of information. It's important.
What's your point of information, Councillor Flynn?
The point of information is very clear, is that the executive of Dublin City Council were very much aware of Mr Bob Geldof's intention. It was provided up to the executive of Dublin City Council to inform the Lord Mayor's office of Mr Geldof's intention. They knew a week beforehand. So I think you want to get your facts really, really clear here. You know, very clear.
I'm going to bring in the CEO on this. I'm going to bring in the CEO. What I have said.
I think it's also, Lord Mayor, I haven't completed. I think it's also really important that you don't actually begin a process of demonising somebody for no apparent reason.
Councillor, I'm going to bring in the CEO.
It's important that you get the information right.
Lord Mayor, just for the information of members, I received a phone call on the Sunday before he actually came back. It was in the afternoon. I think it was after the commemoration or the mass up in for the fire brigade. I had some inkling before that he would be requesting, and we had checked. There being no procedure, we had checked with the archivist, who said that she felt the appropriate procedure was, if somebody wanted, that they should hand back the scroll and indicate to us they wanted to have their name deleted from the Roll of Honour. So I said, well, look, if that's what you want to do, can you hand it back? I suggested he come to my office. He said he'd be close to City Hall. I said, fine, well, we'll get somebody to collect it there. I didn't realise now there was going to be a media scrum, whatever, and I sent Una down to... but there was no issue and no suggestion of any conditionality. He wanted to hand it back. I said, well, hand it back, and if you indicate to us that you want, then that's what we would propose to do, and we will bring it to the council, I think, just to note. But it wasn't conditional, or he didn't, you know, it was if we subsequently remove some other name, he would not want it. It was very clear he wanted to hand it back, and we indicated that we would facilitate that. There was no time because he was going to do it the next day, so I did, in fairness, inform the Lord Mayor as a matter of courtesy that I'd got the call, but there wasn't time to bring a report to anybody. He said he wanted to do it the next day, and I said, fine, you can drop it into my office. As it happened, he wanted to drop it in City Hall, but it was absolutely clear he wanted to hand it back, and he did at that request us that we remove it. There was no conditionality attached to that.
I second Paul McAuliffe's motion to delay this decision.
I think it would be important to actually...
Sorry, I have other speakers. Councillor McAdam. Thought you had. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you very much, Ardvera. Well, just in relation to the overall issue, just to go back to the two recipients, the three recipients, well, Aung San Suu Kyi, I'm quite delighted that she's now struck from the Roll of Honour, because again, it's about the Roll of Honour of this city, and that Roll of Honour should not be brought into disrepute or disgraced. So it's important that actually she's removed from that. In relation to the Bono or the U2 band and Bob Geldof, they're also in receipt of the role of the Freedom of the City of Dublin. And it's incumbent upon them to stand up when necessary against the likes of Aung San Suu Kyi and her silence. And in relation to Mr Geldof, he felt, and he spoke to me about this, that bringing more media attention to the issue, both in terms of City Council and in terms of the city, and not sitting idly by, that he would hand in his particular award. I think the reason why we hand out the Freedom of the City is in continuation that people would do the good works that they do, so it's appropriate that he would hand back it in. In relation to the city management, I think that the city management may be erred, I don't know, but when I rang the city management looking for the protocol in relation to this, there didn't seem to be a protocol in place as to how you would actually hand back in your particular scroll. But Mr. Geldof hasn't indicated to me that you don't proceed to actually not take him off this. So I would agree with the Lord Mayor. Take him off. Take him off, because that's what he wants to do. And the reasons why he wants to be taken off are one of extraordinarily good principles. The principles are, we are taking Aung San Suu Kyi off because she's silent. And Bob Geldof is coming off because he's not silent. And he's using his position in terms of the scroll of the freedom of the city to bring more light into the particular process. Equally, you two are using their position. And I wish the many people that we've given it to in recent years would use the position that they have to voice their concerns in relation to the Rohingya people. Because let's get back to the issue here. The issue is about the Rohingya people. So there is no problem whatsoever. I believe that Mr. Geldof hasn't indicated to anybody in this chambers that he wishes now not to be removed. Remove him. And if at a later date Mr. Geldof wants to be reinterred back into the scroll, well, we can deal with that. Thank you.
On a point of information, I wish they'd use their influence to get people in this city a dry pill at night.
Councillor Murray.
I'd like to second your proposal, Arthur, that we deal with this now. I was actually out meeting some senior citizens in Raheny this very day, and they were, to be honest, they were quite shocked by, irrespective of the issue of the Rohingya, which I can understand, they were quite shocked with Bob Geldof's approach in terms of the way he had done this. So I think, nobody gets to parse the list of freedom of the city, those that are on it, and decide who's on or not. That's a decision that is made by this city council. I think Bob Geldof clearly indicated he didn't want to be on it, and I would regularise that straight away. Sorry, excuse me. I would regularise that now straight away, and let's deal with it, and we're finished. Thank you.
Councillor O'Moore.
Yeah, thanks, Lord Mayor. I do believe they should be taken off him. I do believe Bob insulted the city, Sir Bob, as some people like to call him instead of Mr. Bob. But he did insult the city by coming back and doing what he did, and he created a great performance on the steps of City Hall without consulting any of the other councillors. And I do believe he should be removed forthwith.
Sorry, Councillor Flynn.
Through the chair, Councillor.
Sorry, order, please. Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Lord Mayor, the greatest honour I think can be bestowed on any Dublin citizen is the freedom of the city, and I really think it is an insult to not only to the Lord Mayor's office but also to the city and to the citizens of Dublin that a musician who was coming to the end of his career and got a lifeline through a famine in Africa so as he could qualify, and then he qualifies for one of the greatest honours that Dublin can bestow on anybody. I think that's wrong, and I think in the future we need to be more serious. We need to be more serious about who we bestow the honour on. It should be people who have contributed something special and something very special to Dublin City. It's a Dublin honour, and I think that's what it should be. And I really think that Mr. Geldof should actually think of handing in his Irish passport and look to Britain, where he qualified for an OBE, and maybe he'll qualify for a passport over there.
Councillor Freehill.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Well, it was the elected members of this council that gave him the freedom of the city. He didn't think it worthwhile to make contact with the elected members of this council or make contact with you, Lord Mayor. So he treated us with scant regard. And when he arrived here with such fanfare downstairs, and I mentioned to him about, as I said before, if he really, really cared about the people and all the different groups of people in Myanmar, that he could use his influence with the British government. And he got very annoyed with me because that was getting to the nub of it. And that's where there could be power, and that's where he could have done something by actually using his influence to have economic sanctions on Myanmar, and that would have made a difference. So if he's not that pushed about the freedom of the city, and if he hands it back so lightly, so be it, and we certainly won't be proposing a second one.
Okay, Councillor Larry O'Toole.
Supporting the motion to remove Bob Geldof from the I'm not removing him. We're confirming and accepting his handing it back. He has removed himself from the roll of honour. First of all, it was an insult to the citizens of Dublin, an insult to us in this chamber, the way he went about it. And also, as Councillor Murray said, meeting people in the community, well, they had sympathy for the cause he was talking about. They felt it was a great insult to them that someone would insult the people of the city like that. Now, I'll give and record this. You may not never hear it again. I'm going to give you two credit for the way they approached it. They wrote a letter that all the councillors received it. Now, you'll probably never hear me praising you two again the rest of my life, but I have to give them credit for that. That's the way to approach it. Not a ballyhoo down here, walk in with a councillor. Both of them. I'll stop till you stop. Right?
Sorry, Councillor Flynn, you're continually interrupting.
Not going to waste my time.
Resume, Councillor Till, please. You're continuously interrupting, Councillor Flynn.
Stop the clock while this man is interrupting. Now, comes in here on his high horse, didn't even pay any respect to members of this council, and brings in a councillor with him, which I have to say, both were on such a publicity buzz that I haven't seen in a long, long time. We're accepting, and I'm gladly accepting. Go ahead.
Councillor Flynn.
Stop the clock, I don't mind.
Sir O'Toole, just resume.
Yeah, sorry.
Disregard interruptions.
Thank you. That's the only way to deal with this guy. Stop the clock. We are confirming and accepting his wish to give it back. Now, and I would not agree whatsoever to discommode him on that. And I will not agree that he gets it back again. He insulted us, he insulted this city, and he done it for what it was, a big publicity stunt. As someone said previously, his future is all behind him as regarding music. Thank Lord Mayor.
Councillor Gary Gannon.
Thank you, Alvaro. Sorry, folks. Thanks. Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Lord Mayor, it's a rare occasion that the actions of this chamber will reverberate on the world stage, but tomorrow has that potential based on the actions that we took 20 minutes ago. If the reports of this chamber are confirmed or make international press tomorrow for the symbolic act that we took, I want those reports to read that we removed the Freedom of the City from Aung San Suu Kyi. That's most important. What we're about to do now is, it's borderline embarrassing. I don't know much about Bob Geldof, but he does not get to get the headlines tomorrow. Tomorrow's headline should be that this chamber removes this Freedom of the City. I'm going to support Paul McCauley's motion on that front. I just think that has to be the most important thing that comes from this. We took a symbolic act 20 minutes ago. We're at risk of undermining that in this particular vote. So just to I don't care if he receives the city, gives it back, whatever. It's up to himself, but at a different meeting. Thank you.
Councillor McGinley.
Well, I agree with the Lord Mayor's proposition that we just simply confirm the acceptance of the manner in which Bob Geldof handed back the freedom of the city which was awarded to him. I would also say to Bob Geldof, if he has aspirations to be a politician, there are local elections coming up in 2019 and he's welcome to put his name forward. I doubt if he will, because that would involve a bit of work. The other aspects of this is, when we are awarding the freedom of the city, it is the freedom of the city of Dublin, right? And people, would need to bear more cognizance of that when they are making awards. And equally, the recipients, we'd like them to listen and act on behalf of Dublin. And I think there are gaps in that area, both on the previous individual, in terms of the recipient Aung San Suu Kyi, who didn't respond to this city, and I think that this individual as well, who's disrespecting the city, not just on this occasion, but on other occasions as well. Thank you.
Okay, the last two speakers are Councillors McCartney and Lacey, and then we need to...
Thank you, Lord Mayor. There's a Lanigan's Ball dimension to this debate at this stage there, where Sir Robert Geldof steps out. Now there's suggestions he steps in again. He has demeaned the honour of this award, going back to all those recipients who, in good faith and honour, have received these awards over the last century, and under no circumstances should he be allowed to retain or return or get back or whatever. He should be gone. Councillor McGinley's suggestion that he run in the local elections, I notice he's from Sandymount and we'll take him on any time.
Councillor Lacey.
Well, maybe Councillor McCartan will take Sir Bob on as his running mates. The old Commonwealth Party.
Can I just point out again, as a point of information, it's actually incorrect to call him Sir Bob because he's not a British citizen. So under their legislation, he's not entitled to call himself Sir.
Well, I'm very grateful to Lord Mayor for correcting me. I'm not really too well up on royal titles and things like that, but perhaps you obviously know more. Lord Mayor, this is really becoming a bit petty, to be honest with you. I profoundly disagree with Bob Geldof's view in the matter relating to Burma, but he was awarded the Freedom of the City for very good reasons, and those reasons still stand. He did do all that good work, and he continues to do good work. And a few minutes ago, the council, by 49 votes, agreed with the stand that he took in relation to Aung San Suu Kyi. I happen to disagree with that view, but you voted to stand beside him, and then to turn around and to vote to remove the Freedom of the City title because he had been part of the lobbying group for that strikes me as being a bit bizarre. But it would, seem to me to be fairly reasonable to support the proposal by Councillor McAuliffe. Let us seek clarity on the matter before we take a vote. Let us not turn this council into a sort of a petty little place where we settle other battles by sort of, removing and taking off people because we don't like their views on other issues. Bob Geldof was given the award because he did good work. That justification still stands. Unless, in the words of William Butler Yeats, let us not disgrace ourselves again.
Okay, at this stage I have Councillor Claire O'Connor, Pat Dunn, Brendan Carr and Seamus McGrattan, and I'm closing it at Seamus McGrattan because we need to move on. We have other business. So, Councillor O'Connor.
Thanks, Lord Mayor. I think most people in this chamber find this absolutely unbearable and don't really care whether or not Bob Geldof decides he wants or doesn't want the freedom of the city. Maybe Councillor Flynn could text him and see if he wants it. In any event, I think what Councillor Gannon has said is the most important thing said in the chamber tonight. There's an international interest in what happened in terms of removing Aung San Suu Kyi, and we're blotting our copybook by allowing Mr. Bob Geldof to upstage what has just happened. The second reason he's managing to blot all of our copybooks is that it's 12 nights before Christmas. And I'm sure many of you have socially been asked, why are the council meeting 12 nights before Christmas? Is it because of the homeless crisis? No, all of us have to say, it's because we may or may not take Sir or Mr. or whoever, Bob Geldof, off the list of Freedom of the City. Nobody cares. If Bob Geldof wants to do anything, let him head out, and as Councillor Heaney said, put a few dry pillows under people's heads. It's 12 nights before Christmas. It's killing all of us, I think, here to be talking about this issue when we've so much other things to talk about, and we're completely demeaning what we've just done. I know I'm coming in late in the debate, but I think Councillor McAuliffe's point is excellent. Let's just adjourn this simply because it won't attract any headlines.
Councillor Dunn.
Alvera, thank you. I think tonight's debate, if it does anything for us, should inform us about how we go about the whole process of awarding the freedom of the city to an individual. It seems to me that in the past it has been more or less the prerogative of the Lord Mayor to come up with a couple of names and come into this chamber and just have everybody nod and say, yes, it's your prerogative, we're going to go along with that. And I think that's wrong. How we go about it in the future should be maybe to go out to far wider groups and organisations and indeed the citizens of Dublin itself to get their opinion as to who should be awarded the freedom of the city. Because if our failure to do so could find us in the same position again in a couple of years' time. Did we know, for example, when we awarded to certain individuals that they wouldn't pay tax in this country? Did we know when we awarded to another individual that they'd accept an honour from the British monarch? The answer to those questions is most likely no. But in relation to Bob Geldof himself, I think that I would have had far more respect for him if he had said that he belatedly discovered that the British Empire had also committed atrocities around the world and in this island itself, and on that basis handed back that particular honour. I'm making those points in that I think it should be rescinded and we should accept what was handed back to us, but also just saying let's be very careful about how we go about the awarding of the freedom of the city to any individual in the future. Thank you, Alvera.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, if we proceed with accepting rescinding the Freedom of the City to Bob Geldof, we're not undermining everything else we do this evening. I fully agree with Councillor Gannon on this one, that this is just getting a bit ridiculous now at this stage. It was a publicity stunt. I was annoyed the way Bob Geldof carried out his duty. He should have gone to yourself as Lord Mayor. He should have communicated with the councillors and given a very clear message, and he didn't do that. I, at the time, thought it was an insult to the people of Dublin, and I still think it was an insult to the people of Dublin the way he carried out, saying that he received the freedom of the city for all the good work he has done. And I said this earlier on, for reflecting what we hold close to our hearts here in Dublin, for the values that we hold close to our hearts here in Dublin. Someone said earlier that I don't believe he cares about the people in Burma. I believe he does. I believe he's a complete humanitarian, and I believe it's something that we should be acknowledging here. If we put him in the same category or the same bracket as we did Aung San Suu Kyi earlier on, we're completely making a mockery of ourselves and of this council. And if we are to rescind it, I think time should be given and ask him to reflect fully if that's what he wants prior to it. And I understand a lot of councillors around this chamber are very annoyed the way, as I am, the way this was handled. But I think the freedom of the city is much bigger than a publicity stunt, and a small publicity stunt or something said or something acted on should not undermine the huge value that the freedom of the city of Dublin actually is. I would ask you to support Councillor Paul McAuliffe's proposal on the grounds of what Councillor Gannon actually said. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Final speaker, Councillor McGrattan. Good morning, good order there. I just want to reiterate all the points you made, and for that reason I'll be voting in favour of the motion. I'd be against deferring it because I think we've discussed this enough. We've more important things to talk about on the agenda, so I think we fed the ego enough. This is a man who I understand had to check where City Hall was before he came back to hand back the scroll, so I think we should move on.
Can I come in on a point of order, Lord Mayor?
Yes,
regarding Paul McAuliffe's thing, there's no amendment form filled in, so is that in order if there isn't an amendment form filled in and co-signed?
Well, it is open to a councillor to propose that a motion be deferred or delayed. So so we'll have to take that first. We'll have to take that first. Whether this is postponed. Is it for 6 months? Did you say?
The proposal was to defer it for all of the reasons that Councillor Gannon said until there's clarification as to what Mr. Geldof wants. So I don't, whatever length of time that takes, Lord Mayor. 3 months, Lord.
Is there a seconder for that? Put it to a vote.
So that we're deferring the removal of Bob Geldof from the roll of honour for 3 months until we've clarified his objectives. Proposed by Councillor McAuliffe, seconded by Councillor Costello.
Deferring the decision.
Deferring the decision. Okay. Can we proceed to vote on that? I'm closing the vote now. Okay, that vote is defeated. Yes 20, no 23, 2 abstentions. So we proceed to take the core motion to confirm the removal of Bob Geldof's name from the Roll of Honour at his request. I second the motion. So the motion is proposed by the Lord Mayor and seconded by Councillor Flynn.
Irony of irony.
Sorry, can you, have you all voted? Okay. I'm closing the vote now. So that motion is passed by 33 to 7, with 5 abstentions. So we will proceed to remove the name from the Roll of Honour.